Hi, this is Microdose U, and I'm Dr. Denise. I'm Doctor of Psychology. And here at Microdose U, we're always talking about how to heal, how to prevent issues from occurring, how to heal them, physical, psychological, specifically using psychedelics and microdosing those psychedelics. So today I want to talk to you specifically about prevention of issues, psychological difficulty. And the reason I want to discuss this is I realized that in I've been microdosing psychedelic psilocybin and LSD for about 5 years at this point. And when I first started microdosing, I noticed that I felt so much better. I had done a lot of work on some PTSD, and that was particularly helpful. 5 years ago, when I started microdosing, I noticed I felt even better. There was some residual trauma, we call that post traumatic stress disorder. So, some sort of residual PTSD, having events that happen and lingers there, and maybe it comes up when you're stressed. Maybe you approach a situation that reminds you of it, and you start feeling yourself getting the adrenaline kind of kicks in. So the reason I want to talk about this today is that I know from the psychological disaster data and research, these are teams of people that go in when there is some sort of a disaster, a flood, a hurricane, a fire, something of that nature. And it's not just get people what they need, food, shelter, etc. It's also the psychological team, the psychological disaster team goes in to try to assist with the trauma, with the stress, with the anxiety. And here's what we have known for quite a while. If you do that, if you help people at the time of some sort of tragic event, some trauma, it actually will prevent severe post-traumatic stress disorder. And actually, sometimes it won't even develop. And this is why. And the reason I want to talk about this today is I want to show you how to equip yourself with skills to heal any residual trauma and also to prevent trauma. And I'll call it small t trauma. Something bugged you. It doesn't even have to be that big of a deal. And yet your adrenaline's going up. You got a flat tire. Your car doesn't start. This just happened to me earlier today. And it like throws everything off. Maybe you're going to miss your flight. It's not really a big trauma, it's a small t trauma. What I want to talk about today is what we know about disaster and post traumatic stress and healing that specifically with using psychedelics, microdosing psychedelics, also applies to prevention of developing problems. When you know something's happening, you can prevent post traumatic stress from even developing. And here's the other very cool thing. You can, in a moment of extreme stress, even annoyance, doesn't even have to be that extreme, and you notice you're like, feel your adrenaline escalate. You feel that kind of tightness, constriction, maybe your breathing's a little fast. I'm going to talk about two things that will help you immediately, that also help prevent PTSD. So this is so key to human functioning, because we're all going to have an element of something goes not as planned. Like I said, my car didn't start this morning. It's all fine now, just needed a new battery, so all good. Life is never dull, I say. So these things come in handy. So this is the key, and I'm going to tell you two parts to this. The first part is that we suffer in the moment. Oh, the car didn't start. And this is a small little thing, not trauma, annoyance, stressful maybe. And yet I want to use this kind of benign example. We suffer the stress more than just the stress in that moment. We suffer because we continue to tell the story. So here's the story that was the problem. Oh, the car doesn't start. Now I can't go do my errand. This is a true story. This just happened. I can't go do my errand. Oh, I'm not going to be able to go into my office and record in my studio today. I want to be able to do that for you. And I felt myself kind of the escalation of the adrenaline and the story. And as I was sitting there and waiting for AAA to show up, I realized that was going on. And I said, hey, Denise, you don't know how it's going to go. And what I noticed is in that moment, the edge off of that mild stress definitely came off. So we do suffer a little from the event, and yet and this is where microdosing helps. That gives us that perspective to change the story in that moment because it's what we repeat. If I sat there going, "Oh, that's it. My day's really screwed up now. I'm never going to be able to do all the things," I would have kept myself escalated, and it certainly wasn't going to help me. So there's the suffering about the suffering. Buddhists talk about the suffering about the suffering. So I was already mildly annoyed suffering. And what I realized is I was adding to it by saying, oh, now my day is going to be messed up. And so I stopped that. I was able to catch that. And part of that was Dr. Dave actually reminded me to do that square breathing where you kind of inhale slow, pause, exhale slow, pause. They call that box breathing. So kind of going 4, 4, 4, 4. So you make a box. A lot of times you can add a little extended on the exhale so that inhale 4, pause is all 4 counts, and then exhale a little longer, 6, 8 counts, pause 4. The numbers are not important. If the numbers are making you annoyed, don't do that. Even an extended exhale, being able to even making that kind of, I sound a little silly noise, is going to get the opposite of the adrenaline system going and literally will take the edge off anything that's going on. So that's really a helpful in the moment exercise to do. We're not going to talk ourselves out of it. We're probably going to talk ourselves into it quicker. And once the adrenaline, particularly if it's a big T trauma, there's no way we can do this. So we want to be able to ground, feel our feet, do that extended exhale, anything in that moment that will take the edge off of that adrenaline that helps us feel a little less trapped and in that survival mode. Very important information, very key. The other strategy that I really love, that if you can't do any of that, if that's too much or you want another, the second strategy I want to show you. Hi, it's Dr. Denise. I just wanted to take a quick break here and come in and let you know what we really can do to be helpful for you if you really want to change your life. There's so much that we do here at Microdose U, and one-on-one coaching, one-on-one, very personalized assistance to really create the perfect healing path and understanding about the medicine and access to the medicine, knowing how to proceed and how to do the right pathway for you in terms of microdosing psilocybin, LSD. So click on the show notes. You're going to go to Microdose U. That's the word microdose and the letter U.com, and then click on coaching. All of that information is always in the show notes. And I am here for you. I absolutely know what it is like to be sitting with a lot of information and not knowing exactly what to do. Oftentimes people will tell me that just that one intensive coaching session helped them really get their path going to your highest self and really get serious about having your life exactly as you want it and having your best year ever. So just go ahead and reach out to me so we can get you all set. That if you can't do any of that, if that's too much or you want another, the second strategy I want to show you is if you put your hand on your heart, and sometimes I'll actually put it also on my abdomen. You can't see that part, but you can see my hand on my heart. And you breathe. Even if you don't do the counts and you don't do the exact square breathing, just putting your hand here and trying to slowly breathe, even if it's just a tiny bit slower, is going to help you feel safer. So if you are, particularly, this is very relevant to the next thing I'm going to talk about, if you find yourself in a new trauma, this is how you can prevent it getting stuck in your wiring, in your body. You have your hand on your heart and you breathe. Even if you can't think all the thought, like, I'll find my way, somehow I'm going to be okay. It's very hard to do that in the middle of a big T trauma. Putting your hand here and breathing, if you little bonus, feel your feet on the ground, is going to help you prevent that stuck trauma in your physiology, the pathways in your brain, which ends up being called post traumatic stress disorder. So I had a very recent occasion to experience this and try this out. I have, if you've heard prior episodes, you've heard me talk about that trauma and stress, big stuff I'm not a stranger to. And I have done a lot of healing on that. And before I started microdosing psychedelics, and let's just take a moment to remember what microdosing psychedelics does for us. It resets our brain pathways, it resets our physiology so that we can have that new perspective. So the default is not, especially for trauma, as soon as there's stress, if the default doesn't get reset from trauma, the littlest thing, oh, my car didn't start, may be it registers in your body as a life and death situation when it's not. So what the microdosing psychedelics does is it really changes that default mode. It changes how everything's organized in the brain, in your physiology, and we work alongside that. So certainly what I was just saying, that telling yourself the story over and over again, oh, it's going to be a terrible day, or oh, this is the end of the world, or something, is not helping. And so the microdosing gives you that edge to tell the better story. It literally is as if someone's standing beside you and is saying, hey, wait a second. I hear that you're upset. I see there's this either small t trauma, big T trauma happening. Let's breathe a little. You're going to somehow find your way, even if you don't know how to. The reason that this is particularly poignant at the moment and that I really see this in action is that this just happened to me. So I am no stranger to trauma. And as I've already said, I had residual PTSD, which I know had done a lot of work on. And when I started microdosing, I realized there was still a little bit left there. And it upgraded and healed, and it just keeps getting better. And I didn't feel any residual PTSD. So there was a new, I'll say, big T trauma in my family. Everything is fine. Everyone is well. However, there was a fire, a house fire, and a whole house fire. And my family, it's actually my adult son, lost everything. Let me tell you, if you've never experienced this, which I never have, and I still didn't, although vicariously right next to him, it is quite something to think of replacing, first of all, to lose your home. Secondly, to lose every single belonging you have had. The only thing he had were the clothes on his back. Thankfully, he wasn't there at the time. There were there were other homes that this affected, and about 50 people, and not a scratch on anyone. Miraculous. No injury. Every animal was safe. The 5 fire departments, no first responders were hurt. And of course, all emergency services show up. You learn a lot about what the Red Cross provides, et cetera, et cetera. So, and I will say my son as well, he just secured new housing and he is finding his way. As the mother here, I felt that vicarious trauma. Oh no, here goes his life upside down, life and death stuff again, although it actually wasn't life and death. He did not have to run from the fire. He wasn't home, although he came upon it and saw before they got the fire out. And so there was a lot of trauma. He had to come here. He was a few hours away from here. He had to take leave from work. They put him out on leave, actually, which it's nice to see all these systems have come together and work so well. And I found myself the other day sitting in front of I was at a friend's, her large screen TV. And it was a very cool moment. This may sound silly, but I'm going somewhere with this. As I'm looking at this TV, I found myself thinking in my head, oh, my son has the same, and then I paused. No, he doesn't have the same TV anymore. That's gone. And right away, I noticed little constriction, a little tiny adrenaline. And in that moment, I realized, oh, there's some PTSD developing. And I said, I know how to prevent PTSD. So I took that breath, I put my hand on my heart, and I said to myself, he will have his next TV. And I pictured him. He didn't even have his new home at that point. And I pictured him, and I pictured myself actually, because I had been to his former home many times. I sat there and I pictured myself in his home, this imaginary new home. He didn't have the new one yet. And I saw a TV and I said, in my own story, everything's fine. Everything's well. Now, I'm not, as you've heard me talk about in the past, I'm not pretending that things are everything's fine and wonderful. No, there's a lot. And yet, what I'm doing is instead of the pathway in the brain going, oh, fire, oh, TV, oh, terrible, and getting stuck there. And a few months from now, realizing, oh, now I got to do all that rewiring. I'm rewiring it right now. Just like the disaster teams, the psychological disaster teams go in when there is a fire, when there is some sort of hurricane, some sort of disaster event, they go in and they try to not just help in the moment. People are very distraught and just get them calm or water, place to sleep. They're also trying to help them process and not develop long-term psychological issues. So this is exactly why psychedelics help, because at the time, I don't want to get this wiring that is going to be a new pathway that's trauma. Why go down that pathway? The power of this and the psychedelic use as we work alongside that is the psychedelic basically comes in microdosing and says, no, that we don't have to create that path, especially when, like myself, you've done so much work on the old stuff. The old residual pathways of trauma are gone. So I was very aware not to continue to create them. So again, being able to, sometimes we can't think all these things, just breathe. And I never like to say to people, breathe, just breathe. It sounds, there's that joke, the worst thing you can say in the history of calming down never has telling someone to calm down, help them calm down. So I sort of think of it like that. It's a funny thing, but it's true that I would never say to someone who's just had a fire, just breathe. What I say is, if you can, put your hand here. Let's take a breath. And that actually will get the oxytocin going, and it makes us feel safe in the face of complete survival, running from a fire or anything. It gives us that safety. Oxytocin comes up and it gets released in a lot of ways. But if somebody hugs you, that is going to help you feel safe, as long as it's someone you want hugging you. It increases safety and releases those chemicals in your system right into your bloodstream. And it is like a shot of the opposite of adrenaline going into your system. Microdosing gives you that edge to do that. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that's helpful. And check out, as we always say, the show notes, the Patreon, the WhatsApp, the live meetings are absolutely incredible. And I will see you soon.